Welcome to Spirited Straight Talk, the podcast to help you thrive with the help of spirit. I'm Deb Shepard, psychic medium, spiritual teacher, and author. Each week, I bring new insights to help you heal from loss, connect with spirit, and turn setbacks into triumphs. So let's get started. Do you find it difficult at times to maybe know what to do when people are going through a hard time? I think that's one thing we talk about in our program. It's called holding sacred space. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to bring this up in a podcast because when people join the program, they come from a lot of different perspectives, and maybe they've done a lot of work. So, they may want to share things, or maybe they're brand new and they're a little, feeling worried about being vulnerable or saying the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. But I think this is a great topic because it is transferable to all aspects of our life. So
yes,
let's think about someone that's going through a hard time and you're not sure what to say, or you want to give them great advice, and maybe that person isn't ready. I think the biggest ones are the ones that talk about their story and their concerns and issues over and over and over. And you're thinking, I don't know what else to tell this person. Mm-hmm. And we find this all the time.
Yeah.
And the thing that we like to do in the program, the mentoring, the solutions mm-hmm. program, is to bring everybody together to feel like they're in a safe environment, they can share. And as I always say, I'm the teacher.
Yeah, without judgment, without somebody giving them advice, because people don't share because they want advice all the time. Unless they ask for it, they share to share.
And you would think in a classroom setting, they're looking for a solution, but sometimes they're just looking to say, this is who I am and how I'm showing up. Mm-hmm. And for some individuals, they come in with the perspective or aspect of, wow, this is going on in my life and I don't know where to go. And we can feel overwhelmed when we hear all the different inputs or things mm-hmm. like that. And what I hear in the program is they feel like they can really go deep, they can share, and there are some real strong guidelines to help everyone, heal. To heal and to get their own clarity. And sometimes I think we say to, someone shares a problem, we think our first response is, well, let me give them a solution. Let me tell them how to resolve
fixers.
It. The fixers, yeah. Especially healers or light workers, women have a tendency to solve problems, want to help you with the healing. And then men are designed to, you have a problem? Let me give you the solution. Mm-hmm. And what ends up happening with those scenarios is you get resistance or people pushing back, or you're feeling frustrated because you keep trying to help. Mm-hmm. And they're not listening.
Right.
So you didn't listen to me last time. Why are you telling me this again? Mm-hmm. And I think the other part of it is when we're going through our challenges or life experiences, sometimes we just don't know what we want.
Right.
And we want people to respond a particular way, but we're not sure what we're looking for or how that is supposed to look. So I think there's so many different dynamics when we're trying to problem solve. Mm-hmm. And especially if it's someone really close. I think a lot of it has to do with if it's your kids, mm-hmm. if it's someone, a family member that you're really close to. But we see it in work environments. We see it, in family dynamics, mm-hmm. Really good friends, long-term friends. They keep seeing that pattern.
Well, isn't holding space also having good boundaries?
100%.
Like holding space. If you are the one holding the space, you're basically a listener. Mm-hmm. And you're not listening to fix, you're actively listening to understand.
Which is one of the things that we talk about, which is what you came up with earlier this year when you were going through your word for the year.
My word, my favorite word.
You want to talk about that? Yeah, yeah. That you picked the word grace and it didn't stick for months.
So you had all your students in the solution pick their word of the year, which was their word that they wanted to focus on to bring about a shift or an awareness into their life. And the word that I picked was grace, because what I was finding was that I get very impatient with certain things or with people not listening. I get very impatient, and I really wanted to bring about an awareness for myself, like have more patience, slow down, give people grace, give yourself grace. Don't try to control the outcome so much.
Well, I'm laughing because it's a great story about the energy and vibration of words.
Right.
So that's what
So
happened.
that was my word. And I'd say within the first 4 weeks, the first month, I had so many opportunities to practice grace that I really got sick of that word. Like I was like, wait a minute. It just started compounding. And I'm like, okay, this can't be my word, because it was basically a struggle to get any sort of conversation or situation that arose to resolve. It became such a struggle because it was like my intention of focusing on that word
Give you lots of opportunities.
Created the universe to start sending me more practice 3 or 4 times a day. I was like, I can't have that word anymore. This has to calm down.
Well, and that's where you came up with the tagline to don't listen to respond, listen to understand. And that became a real mantra for our community, because we have a tendency as individuals is when someone's talking, we're already planning a response versus actually listening to the entire dialogue of the other individual, especially if the story is long or you think you know what the outcome is or the answer is. You're trying to resolve it. We're a drive-through society. Let's fix it. Let's solve the problem. I know what to do.
Yeah.
And
people don't listen.
No.
Ever.
And what
they're not good listeners.
And what you were finding is that they assumed, like for customer service, they assumed they knew the answer to your problem.
Right. Before I would even finish the sentence, they would be answering me. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, that's not at all what I was going to say.
Yes.
And so it became,
And then we had a challenge where we had some of our students at a retreat, and someone said, well, you can't hold space. So the whole idea again is understanding that holding space is a vibration of energy and intention to create an opportunity for people, especially in a group, to feel supported and not having our agenda attached to it, because what we sometimes want to do is solve the issue, solve the problem. And that makes us feel good when we can help somebody.
Right.
Instead of sometimes it's about empowering other individuals for them to be able to articulate and share and find their own clarity. Yeah. And sometimes we don't need to solve it.
Yeah. And we should talk about that situation real quick, because we were having a conversation about holding space, and somebody approached you with, well, here, give me your hands, and showed us what he was holding in his hands and said, look, there's nothing in my hands. You can't hold space. You can give space, but you can't hold space. Was that how he put it? Give space?
But very much more in my face.
But it wasn't, but it wasn't taking into account that holding space means somebody knowing that they're supported.
Yes.
And with setting that intention of support. So in that sense, you can hold space for somebody because you're helping to lift them.
What he wanted to tell me was you can give support, like you can give energy. And to me, giving energy is also a boundary if you're doing it without permission. Well, let me just send you energy, the thoughts and prayers. And it's like, well, maybe I don't want your energy. I mean, there's times where I don't want people's energy in my space. You and I can shut down because people want to, intervene and they want to do these things. So holding space is the intention of, I have a love and support for you, whatever you need. Let's figure out what that is.
Yeah.
And that's the listening. That's, all the things that we're going to talk about.
That's actually holding space. That's holding a boundary. Right?
Right. That I'm not here to give you anything. I'm here to be present for you.
Yep.
And I think the biggest thing is being present for people. When someone is going through their life lessons or challenges, they deserve courtesy and respect from others and not judgment. So when someone tries to correct you, I think a lot of it has to do with, well, you're doing it wrong versus maybe there's another way to do it. Maybe I need to go through these things in an effort for my growth and my, process. I mean, it's like you're getting the word grace. We both, went through some changes in our words to understand them.
Yeah.
The word grace was even giving yourself grace if you got frustrated versus giving everyone else grace for not listening.
Yeah.
So it began to shift the process that you had to go through.
I learned grace really quickly.
Yeah.
I had to move on from grace. It's literally, I was like, okay, got it.
Done. Check it off. Next word. We wrote down some things to share with our students in the program. So everyone has some guidelines, but I truly believe that this is something that can be used in a business setting. It can be with family dynamics. Maybe if you're in therapy, going through your own process of stuff, and even letting people know that you're talking to, this is what I want from you, because if we don't know what that is, and if you need to share something with somebody, but the first thing is that they want to
fix it.
Like we said about, trying to resolve a problem and they're not letting you finish. Someone is trying to cut you off and you have to get through your story.
Yeah.
And I know this has sometimes to do with if it's a child or if it's an employee, spouses, husband and wives, men,
that's
men,
a big one.
Yeah.
But even your kids.
Yes. We've talked about this.
Yes.
Not always resolving it for your children because we don't want our children to have pain. So we want to tell them what to do. And when we learn these boundaries about holding space, giving our connected loved ones that are coming to us, listening and to hold that space for them to complete it. So I think we have maybe 10 things, on our list here to kind of go through real briefly. But again, this is about any dynamics of two or more people, whether it's a business setting, personal setting, to think about how you want to show up. And I think if someone is not familiar with this, you can even tell them how you want to show up for an individual. Mm-hmm. And I've told students, when you start learning this technique in class, you're going to expect it outside because it's very much of a sacred place. And that's what we call it,
holding sacred space.
Yeah. The one thing that you just were saying is it's important to allow people to finish.
Yeah.
I have a tendency sometimes, because I'm already getting a psychic hit, and I've had to really learn to let them finish. Mm-hmm. When I'm in a class situation and someone is sharing quite a bit, I know I have a lot to cover. So there's times where I've cut people off and I've apologized for it. But the big thing is reminding yourself that it's important for them to be heard. Because if I want to be heard, then that's the case too. Well, my number one thing that I teach in my class, and it said throughout the program, number one is stay in your own lane. And this seems to be the biggest challenge until people go, oh, now I get it, especially when you're the one sharing and people are not crossing your boundaries. So stay in your lane means whoever is in charge, like if I'm the teacher, you're not the teacher. You're not here to give advice. You're here just to listen and be the observer and be present for the individual. This, I think, is the most powerful lesson of all the 10 we're going to share. But that one is a constant because we want to resolve it. Even when a student calls me, they don't want to take my time. They go, I don't want to take too much of your time. I go, that's my lane.
Yeah.
And they're kind of surprised. I said, I think I know how to manage my time. And if I need to wrap it up, I'm going to let you know. So stay in your lane is something that is critical in life. And if you are a person that needs boundaries or you don't have boundaries, staying in your lane is your mantra forever.
Yes.
And people use it now all the time. Like, I need to stay in my lane, right? I go, yeah.
It makes life so much easier.
It is.
And it really,
your energy.
Like we were talking about our kids a minute ago. And I think as parents, we as a society, but as parents, we cross into our kids' lanes all the time.
Constantly.
And I find myself occasionally doing it, even with my 30-year-old son. It's like, he'll call me with something and it's like, I find myself stopping myself from giving advice until he asks for it, because maybe he doesn't want advice. Mm-hmm. Maybe he just wants to say, hey, this is what's going on, just for me to listen, so, and I started doing that more when the awareness,
right.
Through classes,
I think the fine line there is asking my people, well, when do I give advice? Do you want me just to listen, or did you want me to give you what I would what I'm thinking. That way the person is in a position to ask, like, yeah, I'm okay with you sharing, telling me.
Or I really just wanted to talk. Yeah. Which that's fine. You don't have to solve an issue for them, right? Maybe they just need to talk it out so they can think through it.
Well, how many times do we talk about something out loud? And we go, oh, now I got it. And it's honoring the person that they're just processing, allowing them just to process. And I know, and you know this about me, sometimes by speaking out loud, I don't want you to solve it. You want me to fit. I'm like, no, I just need to say this to you.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break to hear about today's sponsor, which is Grieving to Believing, a medium's mission to bring parents peace. Do you want to be comforted in the knowledge that there is life after death and your loved ones are still with you? Want to experience new levels of healing? Ready to turn your grieving into believing? If so, you don't want to miss G2B. That's what we call it. G2B is a YouTube show with the fantastic, fabulous Deb Shepherd, where she connects grieving parents with their children on the other side and brings through truly extraordinary and unbelievable messages that leave no doubt that there is an afterlife. As you witness the validations and healing messages that come through from these children in spirit, you too will experience new levels of healing, faith, and love. And you'll be comforted in the knowledge that your loved ones on the other side are also with you. To watch the show, visit debshepherd.com and just click on the show, Grieving to Believing, on the website, or click on the link in the show notes right below.
You will realize that you don't have as much energy towards or wasted energy towards, helping somebody. And you're not as attached to, which we'll talk about too, you're not as attached to if they took your advice or not, because later on you may go, well, what did you end up doing? And then you're offended that they didn't take your advice because they found their own avenue. So to me, that's helpful for your own ego to say, let them figure out their own thing. And people can come back. I can't believe you gave me all that advice. It was wrong. And
That's
so
true.
being attached to that. The second one too is allow everyone to finish. And I just kind of cut you off because I'm so excited about talking this.
Deb. No, I'm kidding.
And back to your word, don't listen to respond, listen to understand. And that's the holding space. These two, if you get these two really right, your life will be easier. You'll have boundaries. You'll get more clarity.
Yeah. Active listening. I think people have such a hard time with that. And you can see, like, I'll even be talking to somebody and I can see their mind wandering. And I'm like, did you hear what I just said? Were you listening or were you off somewhere else? Which I think for the person who's talking, it can be really annoying.
And I think, and we're not sharing this, but I think it's also, are you talking to the person over and over and over about the same problem? How are you showing up if you're the one sharing? That's a key too, is thinking about your part of
how
that.
You share.
Yeah, how you share. Number 3, we see this all the time. Don't compare your experiences with others. It's not a competition.
I call them the one-uppers.
One-uppers. There we go. Whether it's positive or negative. So I got this opportunity, then that person, well, I got this opportunity.
Yeah. Oh, well, I did that a year ago. Or, oh yeah. It's just that one-upper instead of, if you're quick to compare or say, not a me too in a good way. Like,
yes.
Oh yes, I
hear you.
I hear you.
I see you. Yeah.
I had that experience, because you want people to identify and relate.
Yeah.
But you don't want to one up them.
Or and the one of them can even be how devastating your trauma is. I see that because people come into the program with a lot of history of trauma, and they'll start saying their story versus, and I'm like, it's not that we can't be relatable.
Nobody's ever heard a story like mine. My story is the worst you've ever heard. Yeah, that's
a one-upper again.
Yeah.
And without realizing the things that we have heard. And also everyone's journey is going to be unique and different. So the one-uppers on we're not competing in our stories.
Yeah.
Which goes into the fourth one. don't respond as you're going to get over it because I did. That's the one-uppers. That's the competition. That's saying to them, well, you know what? I went through something more difficult than you and I got through it, so you can too.
That's crossing over the highway into the oncoming lane.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's really out of your lane.
That is way out of your lane.
We think we're being like understanding that person, but it could be that we show up in a way of saying, wow, that's really hard. I know that you know about my story. If you ever want to talk about it in more detail, I can tell you what I went through, but you're in this place now and I'm here to support you.
Yeah.
And it's not a competition. Don't one up them. Don't dismiss what they're going through. It's really hard. And we actually practice this in the class, is not to have a response other than, you know, my heart hurts for you. That's it. You know, just listening. And that's hard. We are trained on a society culture level to respond in some way. And if we don't know a response, we go into comparing or letting them believe that, well, if I got through it, you got through it. So these are absolutely no-nos. Just listening, maybe asking more questions. You know, what is your plan? You know, how are you feeling now? Well, what is your options versus it's not about you. The story that they're sharing is about them at that moment. Yeah. Number 5, this is as I'm reading through these, because when I wrote these down, these are things that we have been through in all of our programs and watching individuals and helping them to be better healers, to create boundaries, understand, is not to judge somebody no matter what, because that number 4 was don't respond. Well, I got through it too. The judgment is, well, why are they complaining about this? Or that's not really a big deal. Yep. And that can affect someone feeling that what they're going through right now is invalid. Yeah.
Not only that, but it can make them feel shameful, which makes them not want to share.
Yes.
So if you judge them, you're eliciting guilt and shame,
which is what we all vibe. Yeah. And I think too, it's really hard not to judge other people when they're going through things. So part of holding space is creating, again, the intention is I'm not here to determine how valuable or invaluable what they're going through, their pain is. My intention, my way to help this person is just be present and listening. And I think it takes, if you're really present without trying to respond, you're not going to judge them in the way that we may normally do when we hear a story. 7, how do we respond to somebody? Because if we take out the don't compare, don't one up them, then what do we do? And one thing that I think is very helpful is, how do you want me to support you? That's number 1. How do you want me to support you?
Ask them. Yeah.
I'm here to listen. You know, can I just send you love and light? Can I give you a hug? Letting them figure out what they need, because that is a consciousness of energy being moved through, that they know that they're being heard and you're here and you're not judging them for doing it wrong or being in that situation or being in that scenario one more time. A lot of times what we find when people are sharing their story and you come back going, well, how can I support you? They go, I don't know, but I just feel better telling you. Yeah. Because you're showing up, just being present for that individual. They feel it intuitively. And all of a sudden you can see their body relax, knowing that they've been heard. Yep. That's usually the biggest value that we can bring is You've
here. Just helped them shift their energy.
And we've seen it. We've seen it. Like, I'm just so sorry. What can you, what do you need from us? And they go, I already feel better. That alone versus all of a sudden you're bombarding them with comparisons and advice. And they're like, I'm overwhelmed. Number 1, I finally had the bravery to share with you. And now I'm being bombarded. It's almost like the tsunami coming at them. And that can be difficult. Yeah. Number 8. And it's sort of the one upper, but a little different. It's separating yourselves, sharing with somebody. Well, I've never really had that experience. It's the shame. Shaming somebody that you cannot believe that they've been through that. And
isn't it kind of thinking you're better than they are, or that you know better, you've done better, like thinking you're better than they are, which I'm sorry, but no one person is better than another. we all are just trying to find our way, right?
Mm-hmm. And I don't think that when people said that's never happened to me, believe that their intention is I'm better than somebody else, but that's the impression that is given in a group is I've never, you can say the response to me is, I probably have had experience like that, but I can't identify it with this moment, or it might look different for me if you're there to express how it's showing up for you, especially when we've had a topic and we're all sharing.
Yeah.
So it could be that, well, I've never been through that before, but it must suck for you. It could be the way that you can hold that space, that sacred space, by saying, I think it has looked different for me than you, but we're all in a different place. We're all in a different journey, but I am here to be that supportive person versus, that's not been in my arena. Because we have seen some stories that I'm grateful that I've never had those experiences.
And we know life is a roller coaster. You may be great one day and somebody says something happens, whatever the case is, you may be the one needing somebody to hold space for you the next day. So it's so cyclical.
It is.
And instead of thinking you are so enlightened, I think it's really just allowing the process to unfold, holding space when somebody else needs it, and allowing them to hold space when you need it, right?
Right. And I think what happens when there's that comparison or the judgment, the one-uppers, part of it is someone is sharing and we haven't really thought about our own journey. We look at maybe at that moment of what they're sharing, but when we go deeper and think about things, I've heard people come back and go, I thought about, and I've done this, I've thought about that. And that has happened.
Yeah.
It just wasn't as intense or as a big of a reminder, or it wasn't recent. So the separating yourself that you're more special or you're done more work or you're more enlightened or that happened to you a long time ago, again, is creating that you're a better person.
Yeah,
you're separating yourself, which is not about holding space.
Yeah.
Okay. We always say show compassion without crossing boundaries. That's that big. Number 8, confidentiality. There are times that we want to share someone else's story, especially in a classroom setting. And when we're talking about, well, so-and-so shared this with me, so I'm going to share their story. And we always say
with everyone else.
Yeah. To me, the confidential,
even if it's in kindness, it's still right.
Yeah. It's getting permission ahead of time in private, or saying, would you, that they really inspired me, but you don't have to share the story, or I really felt something, and not sharing the story, because we don't always want our story to be told. So consider this. What would we want in that scenario? What is it that we believe I shared with this one person? I didn't expect the whole group or the family or the community or my work, relationships to know about this story.
It's trust. Right?
So
creating that trust, holding sacred space is somebody trusting that you can hear and hold their story.
What I'm thinking about, it's almost like going into someone else's checking account and giving away the money. You that's not yours to own. You don't own it. And every time I've told a story in my classes, I've always gotten permission from that student way beforehand about, can I share the story? Because it's a great teaching tool. And if they go, well, I'm not sure, I don't share it. If they say, because if it's going to help others, absolutely. So that's a big key. If you're a teacher sharing stories, or if you want to talk about, family or your community, don't just share someone's story because you feel like someone told you.
Right.
Make that feeling. 9. This is a little bit different. This is if you're the one sharing your story. If you want people to show up for you, number 9 is pay attention to how much time you're spending telling your story. Because we are a drive-through society, pick and choose what you want to share, and let that person that's listening or the individuals ask more questions if they need more detail. We have a tendency as humans to believe that we have to put the entire story in place in order to make it valuable. Sometimes less is more, as they say, right? It's like, let me wear all my jewelry to tell you what's in my jewelry closet versus maybe a few pieces that stand out. And that's what you want to do, is you want to be able to bring your story to into a group that allows everyone to be more curious versus they're not going to listen anymore and they just want to move through it. This also is, to me, very helpful if the person you're holding space for says, I'm open to hearing what you want to say. Don't go on and on and on about your past, your story, how you came to it. Can you get very clear and let the person ask more questions? And it's not that we have to be really short and to the point, but there are times that we can go on, as I'm doing right now. We can go on and on and on, and people are going to tune out. So, let your story be, as I say, tight. I think number 10, I think it's hard for us sometimes just to sit back and listen. And I think it's giving yourself a way to change how we show up. So it can be where we're looking at the person, shaking our head. We even do those exercises where you're not allowed to even shake your head or smile, because holding space, we try to let the person have comfort. But think about what you need when you're sharing something in your life. If you're a professional therapist, you have practiced this, but for yourself, it's the more that you allow someone to feel comfortable and safe that you're not going to do these things that we talked about, the person will go maybe into becoming more vulnerable. And when that happens, they may see their patterns. They may be able to find their own resolution. And that, to me, is more powerful than always giving people that advice. Don't you think that we have found that because we do this in our classes, the changes that we see happen more quickly?
Yeah, for sure. I think once you learn how to actually effectively hold sacred space and allow people to work through their process and actually figure out what it is, it gives them much more power, I feel like, and allows you to not have to feel like you're constantly solving things for everybody. Because really, that's not, how effective is that?
No, unless they're sitting down and you're being paid, this is my problem, tell me what to do. That's already in your lane, and that's boundaries are already set and the intentions there. But when you're listening and problem solving, create an environment, like you said, kids, partners, coworkers, family, neighbors, friends, to be able to create these intentions. And in the beginning, you may feel like that's a lot. Sometimes it's doing the opposite that's normal.
Yeah, it is the opposite. I was just thinking about this. I have a friend who, in every single conversation, regardless of what you're talking about, will give advice one right after the other. And what it does, like for me, what I do is I just stop talking. I just, okay. You just stop having that conversation because it gets so annoying. So I think having guidelines on actually how to actively listen and how to support somebody in a conversation is
especially when someone's just saying, how's it going? I've been talking to you a couple of weeks. And you go, well, my car, this, and, I pulled a muscle.
Did you take it to the...
Yeah. I had that happen too. Yeah.
Every comment is something, or every sentence is a
what
solution.
They're trying to do is see their own value and worth.
Yeah.
It isn't about the person that's talking. They want you to know where they've already done that. So let me tell you how to do it. So they are not feeling valued in other aspects of their life. So giving that constant advice is about them and not about listening to the person. Because sometimes we're just talking about what's going on. Yeah, how to take the car in. And I pulled this muscle. And I did this. And I just want to share. I know what I need. We're intelligent individuals.
Yeah.
I think the other side to this is because of what I do, we've had to create big boundaries where we really hold space. We're out to dinner or with friends and they start telling me about what's going on. And they go, well, what do you think? Can you give a hit on it? And I'm like, no, I'm not working. And it's not that I don't mind giving advice, but there are times where I just want to be another human being. I don't want to be on the...
Can we have a two-way conversation?
Yeah, two-way conversation.
Versus share with me all your shit.
Yeah. And so that's the other about what are you sharing? Are you always dumping on people? And are you always sharing every single thing and every little moment you're having? And if you're that person that's always doing that, are you holding space for the person that's always the listener?
Yeah.
Are you creating an opportunity to listen and not, just dump on everybody, which is stay in your own lane. This is one of our favorites. These are things that can help you on so many aspects. And it is amazing that this is like the first things that we teach in our program, because we have so many healers and so many people that come in that want to resolve things, that it's listening, being aware, being present. And this is one of the best parts. When you learn how to hold space, your intuition will become so much more in tune, because you're not in your left brain trying to figure out the problem. You're actually listening with your body and your intuition, and you can feel it. That individual that's telling the story will actually feel their intuition usually shifting as well. And that's the beauty. They're like, oh, if there's a group of people and you're allowing this to happen, everyone else begins to get it, because they're not hearing tons of chatter of everyone trying to figure it out. So it helps with your intuition. It helps the group visit. You've been in office meetings, especially when there's a lot of men, not allowing you to finish. You walk out of there exhausted because nothing got resolved. Everyone just tried to one up. I can see you thinking.
Honestly, I would start to sit back and listen until they were done. And then they would ask my opinion. And I would say, okay, so is it my turn to finish what I was saying now?
Yes.
Because it just got so frustrating being talked over again and again. And to your point, one of the things that what you were saying brought up for me is, I know you teach holding space as one of the very first things you teach and talk about in every program, because listening helps you connect and listen to your guides. And this is like the basis of everything you teach.
Because if we stay in our own lane, we become aligned and we're able to download data versus scattered everywhere. And there's no organization to that. There's no resolution. So it is, to me, one of the most valuable things. And it is the foundation of, if you want to develop your intuition more, how you show up, whether you're holding space or sharing. These are magical tools.
Your tools for your magic bag.
Absolutely. I can't wait to maybe some people experience this and try it and email us and let us know. That would be really fun. With that said, please go to the website, register for a newsletter and our psychic dreaming course that's free. So if you don't have it yet, please do so, because
they just jump on your website and it's your psychic dreaming course. It is a free downloadable course that's just 3 days.
Who doesn't like free things that are really awesome?
I know.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope it inspired you. If you enjoyed our conversation, make sure you subscribe so that you get notified of new episodes. And let's get connected. Visit debshepard.com for more insights, support, workshops, and a book a session with me. And finally, always remember, your loved ones in spirit are just a thought away. Even though they're on the other side, they're always by your side.